Welcome to USTC360. I'm Ginger Chang. Our story today takes place in Brazil, a country known for its many attractions. Yet within Brazil's attractions underlies extreme poverty and environmental pollution. To tell us more is Austin Chu, who was just there as part of Tzu Chi's delegation for the United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development, or Rio+20. Welcome, Austin.
Thanks, Ginger.
So Rio is actually known, a nickname as the Marvelous City. But while you were there, you were able to visit the infamous Garbage Mountain, which I have a picture here. Did you know that 70% of the city's trash goes into here? And then there are actually more than 1,700 people who rely on this mountain here to make a living. So can you tell us what was it like to know that so many people depend on this wasteland to get by?
So everyone knows Brazil is famous for these slums called favelas, and Trash Mountain is actually even worse off than the people who live in favelas.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
So I actually had the chance to visit Trash Mountain, and you can see garbages strewn on the ground, wild animals are running around, and the whole situation is very unsanitary.
Then speaking of their lack of access, or difficulty just getting basic requirements, how can sustainable development help the people there, improve their lives there? Mm-hmm.
So I think how sustainable development can best help improve the lives of people who live in places such as Trash Mountain is by coming up with innovative solutions to improve the access to basic resources such as water or energy. So one example that I heard that was really profound was the introduction of a light bulb to refugee camps.
Oh,
and
wow.
now light bulb is technology we've had for several hundred years now, but the introduction of this basic lighting reduced the number of sexual assault from 57 down to 2 per month.
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing how significant and meaningful impact it can have on people's lives. Such a simple technology.
Okay. Well, it's great you bring it up. It's a really good solution, which brings me to my first segment. So let's go take a closer look at the urban water pollution problem.
While many people may think of Rio de Janeiro as simply a tourist destination to lie on the beach and to drink fruity drinks, it is actually a place of immense beauty as well as rich in culture. So we had the chance to visit the Trash Mountain as well as to view the many favelas, or the slums, around the city of Rio de Janeiro. One of our local volunteers, as we drove by favelas, kept mentioning that the people who live in favelas, they're actually not that poor. The people who are really poor are the ones who live in the Trash Mountain. Now, when we arrived, we could see that this was true.
I was helped by Tzu Chi ever since my husband died. Thank God, it's been a year since the surgery on my arm. They helped so much. However, in my day-to-day life, the water situation remains the most difficult. We pay for the water each month, but sometimes it breaks down. And we have to get water from 20 kilometers away, the next town over. We pay $5 a bucket.
Helping to save water doesn't just help our own city. Water from one place comes from all over the world. It's the entire world's water. If we can conserve resources, filtering and reusing gray water, lightly used wastewater, instead of it becoming more pollution, it can be reclaimed for tasks around the house. Preserving the drinking water and the gray water can be used for washing or toilets or similar tasks, and there be more potable water for all. That's what my company seeks to do.
Preservar a água potável para os fins nobres. Ou seja, você vai usar água potável. A água cinza é coletada.
This is the filtration system we've installed for the Inga bus company. Originally, we simply collected and filtered rainwater from the roof of the bus station. But the city set stricter standards, and now wastewater from the wash cycle is also collected and piped to the holding tanks, where they are treated with chemicals to handle the oil and biomatter. It's then piped to another tank, where it undergoes a physical filtration process powered through gravitation and water pressure. These vertical filters use no electricity involved and self-sustaining. There are no infectants in the water. The water is perfectly clean, slightly chlorinated, and goes back towards washing more buses. This same process have been installed for both habitation and businesses to great success.
Yes. Now, in the past, they paid 11,000. Nowadays, only 5 or 6,000 per month. So they save almost $6,000 per month. I can say that people's wastewater is our resource, and we can use it to produce reused water and save the nature. I think now it's good.
Seeing this company's ability to thrive on the green economy demonstrated that it is possible to make a living while being environmentally and socially responsible.
就你一个人在这里。
我姓李，我叫李真生啊。
My name is Li Jiangsang, and I'm a professor at Sao Paulo University, specializing in sugarcane research. The sugarcane factory that we're visiting is Usina Santa Lucia, which is a family-run business that opened in 1945.
这个糖厂1945年就开始了，你们刚才也看到了。
We use 100% of the sugarcane that comes in to be processed. There is no waste. We maximize the potential energy. The sugarcane's biomatter can be used to make the electricity with which we run our factory. Our factory only runs on the electricity it produces itself. Or, depending on if the market price is good, we could either sell the biomatter or the electricity we produce. Additionally, the sugarcane can also make food products, such as sugar. Or, depending on the market price, more is allocated to be converted into ethanol, which gets blended and sold to local gas stations.
You read and hear about so much about sustainable development, sustainable business practices, biofuels, biodiesel. But I think it was really cool not only to learn from the people who are actually on the ground doing these, implementing these practices, but also to see firsthand how they implement, how they design their technology in order to produce these sustainable sources of fuel and these renewables.
它这个巴西感觉最骄傲的就是用甘蔗。
Brazil is most proud of their use of sugarcane as a biofuel, for which, of course, the most important product is ethanol. In general, many public buses in Sao Paulo already run on such biofuels.
In fact, the shuttle buses that take us to and from our hotels to the convention center at Rio+20 run on biodiesel. But not all countries are as ambitious at sustainable development. After going around and seeing some of the beautiful landmarks, some of the beautiful landscapes here, the ocean, the mountain, the forest, I think it's the perfect place to hold the Rio+20 conference. Because what we're here to do is to come up with a sustainable way forward and to not only to conserve the beautiful environment that is here, but also to find a way to be more socially inclusive and to develop economically while balancing the environmental and social dimensions.
The 2012 United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development, or Rio+20, was held in Brazil's Rio de Janeiro in June. More than 45,000 people and 191 countries were present over the course of 9 days. Rio+20 was to find solutions to end poverty, address environmental problems, and build a bridge to a sustainable future. Tzu Chi Foundation was one of the participating NGOs during the summit. Austin, can you tell us what was the significance and purpose of Tzu Chi being there?
So the first important reason that we were there was we applied for and were accepted to host this UN official side event, which is essentially a lecture workshop. And so we had the opportunity to share some of the great things that Tzu Chi is doing in terms of environmental sustainability, such as our community recycling centers, our dye technology products, and our 80/20 campaign. Second reason that we were there was in order to build partnerships and look for other opportunities to network with other NGOs as well as people in private and public sector. And the third reason was to learn what is going on in the sector of environmental sustainability.
So there were also over 500 side events during Rio that led up to the actual event. I know you attended some, so which one of those stood out to you?
Okay, so I think the side event that stood out to me the most was actually one called Youth-Led Innovation Towards the NBGs, which stands for Millennium Development Goals.
Oh.
Now, what really stood out to me was that this was a side event about youth and how youth can be empowered in terms of taking leadership roles in sustainable development. And to see the Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, who was present at the side event, as well as several other luminaries such as Nobel Peace Prize laureate Muhammad Yunus, as well as Ted Turner, they really take this issue of youth seriously.
Okay, so let's take a short break to go meet them.
This is Rio+20, United Nations Conference on Sustainable Development. The reason it's called Rio+20 is because this was the site of the original 1992 Earth Summit, which took place in Rio de Janeiro. This is 2012, 20 years later, it's now called Rio+20.
1992, the Eco 92 here in Rio de Janeiro 20 years ago was so important for civil society to become involved in environmental issues. A series of initiatives started after Eco 92 happened here in this town or in this city.
Being here in Brazil, seeing all these countries coming together to attend the Green Summit, I have a strong feeling that everyone felt the urgency to do something. If we don't act, the entire Earth is slowly moving towards a critical and severe challenge. Just like the opening ceremony today, coming in from outer space, it's a sign telling us that this globe needs all of our care. We need to come together and face the green economic crisis and our carbon footprint.
World leaders must send a signal that they are committed to a sustainable future, a future that lifts people from poverty, generates dynamic and equitable growth, and respects the limits of our planet's finite resources.
The window of opportunity to act on climate change in a decisive way is closing, and we need to move. Only a few years ago, we thought that there were some global banks that were too big to fail. They have proven us wrong. The planet is not big to fail if we don't start taking care of it appropriately now.
Global conferences like Rio that bring people together from many, many sectors are extremely important for shifting the global agenda, because it's not enough for a few organizations to do good work. We really need to change policies in every country of the world and change the hearts and minds of everyone in the world.
On June 17th, Tzu Chi hosted a UN side event on the patterns of sustainable consumption. The panel promoted the reduction of consumption and encouraged community support for environmental sustainability initiatives.
It's been a very interesting experience coordinating the logistics for this conference and for hosting a side event on the UN premises. We've been working together on this project since January of this year, and we've been on conference calls across 4 different time zones every week: Brazil, Taiwan, California, and New York. And it's great to actually finally be here. Even before we arrived, we started experiencing problems. So Deborah Sigu arrived on the 15th. Unfortunately, her luggage did not arrive with her. Our side event was on the 17th in the morning, and we needed to have all the posters, our samples with us by then.
Posters, we had some DVDs. The panel starts at 11:30 tomorrow morning. That means we have a little less than 24 hours. We have 21 hours to go.
是很无常，
Life is really fragile. We need to promote the view of impermanence. We need constant vigilance when things are well. When misfortune happens, we have to face it. When you face the issue, you will realize that all of us are on the same plane, so you need to calm down.
Thankfully, afternoon of the 16th, we found out that the luggage had arrived.
师姐，现在行李怎么样？是，哦，好了，可以了。
到了，
到了，
太好了，不用谢了。Despite the many challenges, throughout this whole process, Deborah Sugu remained very calm and steadfast in her leadership.
We are grateful of our fellow volunteers in Rio. They spent 2-3 hours on the phone chasing the luggage. We are really thankful, and they found all the basic equipment we need to install. It wouldn't have been possible without Tzu Chi volunteers.
没有慈济人，这些都改变生态，怎么样用鼓掌的双手来做环保？怎么样把保特瓶爱的亲和变？每一个国家都有每个国家的文化，心灵环保是。
Every country has her own culture. Spiritual environmentalism is individualistic. Master hopes that we can bring this phrase, spiritual environmentalism, its sustainability and procedures, to different countries and share it through this international platform. They can bring it back to their communities and start a calling that brings action.
Hopes were high going into the conference, with representatives from 181 governments as well as all 9 major groups of civil society, including business, science, local authorities, NGOs, unions, farmers, indigenous peoples, women, and youth. But the outcome document from the talks left many disappointed.
Many people point out that this document from Rio+20 is full of good ideas and good promises, but it's not a binding agreement, and therefore countries are not obliged to do what's written in the text. How would you comment on that criticism?
I also hope that we should have a more ambitious outcome document. But you should also understand that the negotiations have been very, very difficult and very slow.
All these meetings were canceled because they were supposed to agree on everything by yesterday, but they couldn't. So since they couldn't agree on anything, these meetings has all been canceled today.
A lot of us have been going to some meetings or trying to answer questions to talk to our governments as much as possible, and we really still hoped that somehow they will listen to us at some point. But now, 3 days ago, when they agreed to the last document, we realized that all the points we had tried to push for, to explain that those were real solutions for us, they have all been removed from the document. So we really came like 10 days ago trying to really play a role in partnership with governments, but they have ignored us.
I have been saying that this is not the end. This is the beginning of many more processes will come. And this is to raise and reaffirm a political statement of the world leaders. However good the action agendas there may be, if these action agendas are not implemented, not translated into action, this will be only on the paper.
Every UN conference is supposed to produce an outcome document which countries will sign and agree to. Negotiations for the outcome document actually began months, even last year, in New York, and they even had a last in May, during which Ban Ki-moon, the Secretary General, even extended the talks because he felt that not enough progress had been made. So they negotiate all the way up to the opening of the conference until the world leaders arrive, and the leaders have the power to make decisions. And so the debate continues for the next 2 or 3 days during the conference, and the last day of the conference, on Friday, the 22nd, the countries are supposed to come together and sign a document that they can agree to.
From the very beginning, we have said Rio+20 is about implementation, is about action. And the commitments that we share with you today demonstrate that governments, the United Nations systems, and the 9 major groups are committed. highest expectations may be on governments, but they cannot get the job done alone. We need the active involvement and support of civil society and the private sector.
1,500 CEOs from 60 nations, global NGOs from all over the world have come to your conference and committed to action. Those who have failed you, Mr. Shah, are the governments. Those are the ones that have failed you, sir, not the CEOs and not the global NGOs. The winner of the Date with History competition, a young lady named Brittany from your country, Helen, posed the question, are you here to save the planet or are you here to save face? I would argue that governments have neither saved the planet nor saved face.
Well, my hope for Rio+20 is the fact that the people gathered here who want a better world. I'm not waiting for a perfect text to come out of here. That won't. Governments are captive to greed. They're not going to be able to write a text for a future vision of the planet. The future vision will be shaped in rooms like this, where citizens gather to say, A, we don't have to live in a society which is destroying our future. There are better ways to live with less, and we're going to shape that society no matter where the powerful want to take us. We will not allow them to take us there because we want to leave a planet which we received.
These UN conferences are always great moments in history for reaffirming the commitments for civil society, for NGOs, for business leaders, or policymakers, to reaffirm their commitments to rise above national narrow self-interest and to come together and find a way to move forward together in a way that protects us all.
Welcome back. So Austin, there's actually been criticism about Rio+20's conference that it fell short of expectations. But can you tell us, what did you learn from Rio+20?
Sure. So I think the most important lesson that I learned from attending Rio+20 was that there is no one easy solution that can be applied everywhere for sustainable development. There's no one size fits all. And in addition to that, this is a problem that will require an all hands on deck solution from people from civil society, from business, from government.
Well, one important outcome was the acknowledgement of the capability and the valuable contributions that NGOs can do to promote sustainability. So, for Tzu Chi, in regards to this, what can Tzu Chi do?
Tzu Chi already does a lot in terms of environmental protection, which I applaud Tzu Chi for. But I think what Tzu Chi can continue to do is actually promote environmental protection and sustainability on an individual level. Tzu Chi is very good at inspiring people and inspiring its members.
Well, I hope by your experience and by you sharing and today's feature presentation, our folks have been inspired to continue Tzu Chi's goodwill missions. So thank you very much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So folks, I hope you enjoyed today's show. I'm Ginger Chang, and I'll see you next week.